Good afternoon. Welcome to the Case for 7-Hydroxy panel. My name is Matthew Schwarman. I'll be your moderator for today's discussion. Today's panel is sponsored by 7 Hope Alliance, which is the 7-Hydroxy outreach for public education. 7 Hope is a nonprofit organization designed to bring together advocates, industry members, doctors, consumers to promote science and education about 7-Hydroxy, including making sure people have safe and fair access to the product. We have an exciting panel. Let's get started. I'm going to ask each panelist to introduce themselves. So, Dr. Ross, you're next to me. Let's start with you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Dr. Michelle Ross. I'm an addiction neuroscientist, and I've actually been working in the plant medicine space for over 15 years. I started off in cannabis. I founded a cannabis nonprofit, and I was one of the first people to help actually do cannabis safety standards, again, for new products that we weren't sure how they would impact people. I did a lot of chronic pain consultations, clinical research, and then I started moving into other natural medicines like psilocybin mushrooms and Kratom. I actually found Kratom in 2016, so I've been working with it personally as a patient who has fibromyalgia, neuropathy, and I started working with it with chronic pain patients as well as people in recovery. I discovered 7-0 recently this year in around February and started using it myself for my pain. Again, I have level 10 pain. I also actually wrote a couple of books. You might be familiar with one. One is called Kratom is Medicine that was out in 2021. So I was one of the first people actually educating doctors about how to use this plant and its different alkaloids medicinally. So I was really excited about all the different alkaloids in the plant. You know, it's not just Mitragynine, you know, there's 7-0, there's so many other ones in there. There's over 35 to 40 alkaloids that are in the plant or organic oxidation product. So it's really exciting to really harness this and help people. Everyone has different needs for pain. So, you know, that's my 2 cents here. I'm really excited to be a scientific advisor for 7 Hope. And Terry, I'll let you talk now.
Thank you, Doctor, and thank you, Matt. I'm a former local and federal law enforcement officer. I decided at a young age to commit myself to protecting communities. I love this country, and I unfortunately, a big part of that career, I was under the delusion that the war on drugs was a good thing. I fought on the other side of the war on drugs, and exactly 10 years ago, I was very fortunate to be educated by some smart and open-minded law enforcement officers who realized about the mistakes that the war on drugs, not only was it not working, but the adverse effects from it. And since then, I have spent my time, I'm a public speaker for LEAP, Law Enforcement Action Partnership, a national speaker for them. I was also on the board for 6 years, spent a lot of time talking about common sense drug policy reform. When I became aware of 7-Hydroxy, I was really excited about it because the statistics that I've seen is that there's a great possibility that 7-Hydroxy can be used to reduce opioid deaths. Opiate deaths. It's already happening, and we've seen in Utah, for example, is the only state that is really focused on enforcing a 2% ban, and hydroxy deaths or opiate deaths have actually gone up. It's a very safe drug. I ended up using it myself, and the product has really helped me. I came back from Iraq with a severe cervical injury, became addicted to opiates, and so I have to be careful about what I take. But I'm excited about it. I think that not only is it a good product for people who are dealing with pain, but it's a great product for helping people with their addictions, at least from what we're seeing so far. And I'm just so happy to be a law enforcement advisor for 7 Hope, and thank you for coming today and listening to us.
So my name is Jackie Subek. I am the founder of 7 Hope Alliance, which, as you've heard, is a nonprofit, and our focus and goal is public education, and not just public for the consumer, but public for lawmakers, public for really anybody who is interested and in a position of, helping us move forward with safe product as we go forth. And also, we are focusing on safety studies of all kinds, actually. So that's our mission, and we're really excited about it because, as not to be too redundant, but what we're seeing and what we're hearing from consumers out there particularly is that 7.0 is saving lives. And I'm not here to tell you 7.0 is saving lives. They're telling us that 7.0 is saving lives. And we pay attention to that. My background is drug policy. I was in the cannabis space for well over a decade. I've done some work in psychedelics. Personally, I'm an anti-prohibitionist, so I don't believe that drugs should be illegal. I think they should be regulated and keeping people safe. That is always, we love the phrase safety first, but it really is true in this case. So given that 7.0 and 7-hydroxy is somewhat of a new product out there on the market, we're still only in the first 2 years, we know that there's lots to be done. And so we're taking that on. We're taking that very seriously. And we have several studies that are just getting started. We've already contracted them out. We're doing tox studies, liver toxicity studies, but then we're also going to be doing comparative studies with universities where we're comparing 7.0 and Mitragynine, or 7.0 and ketamine, or 7.0 and alcohol, and let's see how these things actually work together, how they compare to each other, whether it is in the form of taking it for some kind of chronic pain, or whether it's in the form of driving and impaired driving. So we like to kind of look, and we want to see like the whole picture. So that is our goal. So we're really happy to be here with you today. We have a lot of things that we want to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it back to Matt, and let's get this thing started.
All right. Thank you very much. Before we get too complicated, Dr. Ross, I'm going to put that degree to use. Kind of give us the basic science of 7-hydroxy. What is it? What does it do? How does it work?
One of the very first things that I want to mention here is that there has been a lot of misinformation and even disinformation about how 7.0 works. So 7.0 is a partial mu-opioid agonist. You may have heard Dr. McCurdy earlier today talking and trying to convince you that Mitragynine is a partial mu-opioid agonist, but 7.0, it's not safe because it's a full opioid agonist. And in fact, there have been over 4 papers that are basic research papers looking at that question: is 7.0 a partial or a full mu-opioid agonist? And let me just tell you, the literature says, without a doubt, that is a partial mu-opioid agonist. There are different sources of education out there, continuing education that was put out there by even partners of the AKA that say it's a partial mu-opioid agonist. So I want to clear that up because there's so much confusion that 7.0 is not safe because it's activating these receptors in a very strong manner, similar to fentanyl, right? So a full opioid agonist is something that will hit that receptor hard and cause euphoria. It can cause respiratory depression. It can cause overdose and death. It's because a full opioid agonist is able to basically turn on that light bulb all the way to its brightest power. It's able to basically, again, you take one dose of it, you take another dose, you take another dose, it's going to make you more euphoric, it's going to make you more high, and then eventually, again, it will lead to death because you can't breathe, it will lead to seizures, etc., right? That's fentanyl, that's morphine, that's heroin, that's OxyContin. Those are full opioid agonists, and they are dangerous, and that's why they're controlled drugs. Now, 7.0 is a little bit different. It's a partial mu-opioid agonist. So when it attaches to that opioid receptor, again, using the light bulb analogy, it's really like, hey, it's binding very tightly to it, but it's only turning on that light bulb a little dim. And what that means is that if you take 7.0, it's not going to cause massive amounts of euphoria if you took more and more. It's actually dysphoric. As a user, I can tell you, if you take more than is what is good for you personally, you won't feel super great. And so that's actually great. What that's called is a ceiling effect too, is that there's only so much that the 7.0 can activate those downstream pathways, whether it's respiratory depression, whether it's, again, those pathways, those G protein pathways that are activating pain relief and other effects, right? So 7-0 is not the strongest thing out there on the market. It's not fentanyl, it's not heroin. In fact, if you look at potency and how it operates on a very scientific level, it's really more of a botanical based Suboxone or buprenorphine, because Suboxone is actually a combo of buprenorphine and naloxone. So, but it's acting more like that. So the Kratom plant is an amazing plant. It's grown in Southeast Asia. It has, again, over 35 to 40 alkaloids. Mitragynine is the major alkaloid, but again, 7-0 is an oxidation product. When you take Kratom products, about 20 to 30% of that mitragynine turns into 7-0 in your body. So everyone who uses Kratom has some experience with 7-0, right? And it's not this dangerous thing. It's not a full opioid agonist. People that use Kratom aren't dying. People who use 7-0 products aren't dying. It is a partial mu-opioid agonist. So that's, again, this is why it hasn't been banned. This is why the World Health Organization hasn't made a move on it. It's been watching it since 2021. You know, it had put out a report saying it's a partial mu-opioid agonist. It shouldn't be banned right now. Let's wait for the research. So I just want to put it out there. The science there shows that it's not the 5-alarm fire that you think it is. It's a partial mu-opioid agonist. And their science backs that up. So despite what an expert might tell you, and I'm not here to flex my expertise too, I'm just here to tell you what the literature says, and then also back that up with what we see in people. So if somebody tells you that something is one thing, but they have nothing to back it up, no public data to back it up, ask some questions, be skeptical. That's it, that's my 2 cents.
Actually, I want to question, because you mentioned in there the conversion rate. So common mitragynine products out there, 100 milligrams of mitragynine. Walk me through either how I'm getting 7-hydroxy out of that, or explain to me the differences between mitragynine and 7-hydroxy.
I'm not a scientist. I'm going to say that right now. But I think what's important to know is to repeat what Dr. Ross just said. When you take mitragynine into your body, so if you're taking in 100 milligrams of mitragynine into your body, 20 to 30% of that metabolizes, converts inside your body naturally into 7-hydroxymitragynine. So now you've got 7-hydroxymitragynine. So if we had 100 milligrams of mitragynine, now you've got, what is 20% of that? 20 to 30. I'm kidding. 20%, 20 milligrams to 30 milligrams of 7-0 in your body. So that's just how that works. And then the 7-0 is what then goes around and targets the opioid receptors and helps with the pain management. But when you're taking a mitragynine product, typically, you may see something different here on the floor, but typically a Kratom product is a full spectrum product where you've got all 30 to 40 alkaloids inside that product itself, inside the Kratom extract. So when you take mitragynine into your body, you're actually taking the whole plant into your body, which is then targeting your serotonin receptors, targeting your dopamine receptors, in addition to opioid receptors from 7-0. So when you are metabolizing that and now your body is processing it and your liver is processing it, taking a full Kratom product is a lot more plant matter to process. You're putting your liver through a lot more work. When you're taking a 7-0 tablet, let's say a 14 milligram, 21 milligram 7-0 tablet, you're having one alkaloid, and that's what your body is processing. So it's just easier ultimately on the body, easier on the liver. And I think as a non-scientist, that's how I like to think about things, so that I can understand what that means. Is that helpful?
Yeah, and I just want to add too, as a Kratom consumer since 2016, I really depended on it for my pain and my fatigue. I also have narcolepsy, so I have a laundry list of problems, right? And I found Kratom was really effective. But over the years, I started to see adverse effects from it. I had stomach pain, right? I had gastritis. I was actually diagnosed. I ended up with pancreatitis. I had all these different issues, and I was like, wait, is Kratom really helpful? And so I did actually try to back off my use, and I found out, hey, these adverse events, like these side effects don't happen if I don't use the Kratom, but also I need the Kratom for the pain management and the energy. So I was like a little conflicted, right? And so I would take it when I could, but it wasn't really great. And then also I had like kidney stones, like I had a whole bunch of things. And when 7.0 came on, it like made sense to me. It's like you take a tablet, I don't have stomach pain, I don't have gastritis, I haven't had to go to the hospital for like different issues. And you know, I'm not dependent, I would say that. Like, I just take these things when I need them, but like, I am in pain every day. And so for me to find a product that, you know, scientifically makes sense, okay, my liver isn't having to deal with as much, my stomach isn't having to deal with as much plant matter. I mean, like literally 10 grams of plant matter, Kratom leaf, is a lot to consume, right? And if you can just take a 32 milligram tablet instead to get the same as 10 grams of Kratom leaf, for a lot of you know, sick people out there, it makes sense. And again, remember, the target Kratom or 7.0 user is actually a chronic pain patient. It's actually not people in recovery. That is about 25% of users, but like the average Kratom and 7.0 user is somebody who is in pain. And so they, you know, might not have super healthy organs. Their stomach might be hurting, you know, different parts of their body may not be in 100% healthy order. And so anything that we can do to make their experience a little bit easier, including making a 7.0 tablet, I think should be supported instead of demonized, right? Oh my goodness, we extracted this alkaloid and it's so dangerous and how dare these people take it? And it's like, no, you found an easier way for me to be able to manage my day. So that's.
I want to hear Terry's root canal story. That's what I want to hear.
All right, let's hear that one good.
Don't you want to know about Terry's root canal?
Lined up, actually. So go ahead, root canal story first, and then I have some law enforcement questions.
Can we hear about Terry's root canal?
Yeah, I had one of the most, I had been using 7-hydroxy for my neck pain just intermittently when I would have a bad day or a flare-up, sometimes to help me sleep at night. And I went to the doctor, and I had one of the most painful, I think it was the most painful root canal I have had in my entire life. It lasted several hours. The doctor ran into problems, kept having to drill down to get the root, and she was like, I'm sorry, we're going deeper, and giving me more shots. And she said, I'll give you some pills. And I'm like, I have to stay away from opiates. And so I went home and I took 7-hydroxy, and it was miraculous. I mean, it really dulled the pain. It was still kind of there in the background, but it really dulled it, and I was able to sleep, and I was like, thank God for 7-hydroxy. And I thought, you know, there's a lot of people out there that, you know, like Dr. Ross and Matt, you know, that use this product. And if it gets banned, it's really going to be sad. And there's not anything else on the market, you know, to fall back on. I mean, it really fills a niche. And I was very lucky to have it, to be honest with you. So
earlier, you mentioned the war on drugs and the years you spent with that. So during the height of the opioid crisis, we'd hear stories about opiate users breaking into pharmacies, trying to steal any opiate they could find. So what I want to see is if we're seeing any relation with that. Like, can you tell me how is law enforcement reacting with 7-hydroxy? Or are we hearing stories of people breaking in and stealing all the 7-hydroxy products? Like, is law enforcement running into that? Like, walk me through it.
Sure, Matt. Well, you know, like I said before, I dedicated my life to protecting communities, and I wasn't about to support something that would have an adverse effect on community safety. And the research that I did, I found that there weren't any was no adverse impact on community safety. This isn't a party drug. You know, people aren't busting into, you know, the stores that sell this in order to steal it. It's just not happening. And I reached out to my colleagues in law enforcement, and they hadn't even none of them had even heard of 7-hydroxy. A couple of them said, Kratom, that sounds familiar. So the reality is, you know, like you said, it's not the 511 fire that that some people are trying to make it out to be. It's just not having that impact. It's not impacting community safety. As a matter of fact, one of the things that we're really excited about in law enforcement is that you know, what I mentioned before about the possibility of reducing opiate deaths. So, you know, you know, the average dose of 7-hydroxy is about $5. If you think about the fact that people are using that instead of opiates, which cost hundreds of dollars. Some of them have hundreds of dollars a day addiction. They're having to go out and commit crimes to get that. You've got the dealers of those illicit products that are using violence to protect their market. And we're just supporting small businesses all across the United States. I mean, I think it's a win-win for everybody, really. So that's one of the reasons I decided to promote and to support this product, because I see the impact, the positive impact on our communities, and the negative impacts on public safety are just not there.
All right, so then Dr. Ross, I keep hearing how amazing this is, but can you actually give us some information on potential therapeutic benefits of 7-OH, research that's going on, ways to use it medically? Go ahead and educate us on that.
Sure. We're really new when it comes to some of the research about 7-O, but there really is some exciting preclinical data. There is a published paper on using 7-O to reduce alcohol intake, and we're actually seeing testimonials that have been submitted to 7-HOPE saying, hey, I was struggling with alcohol abuse and now I take 7-O and my life is so much better. So we would love to, again, explore that in more clinical research and really validate these things, but that's really exciting. I mean, alcohol abuse is a major, major problem, a major cause of death in the United States, major cause of car accidents, etc. So that alone as a real value. And of course, we talked about its use for opioid use disorder. Again, we can't say that it treats anything, but when we look at this as a harm reduction tool for people who are struggling with substance abuse, right? You use heroin that could be adulterated with fentanyl, you die. Right? My brother died from fentanyl and alcohol. And for me to really see that there's potential for these substances, again, we have to do that clinical research to validate the safety of these substances. We can never say, hey, this works for this, right? But again, we are seeing testimonials from people that are using it right now, and that is exciting. Now, one of the things that is sort of cool, and again, I nerd out about the alkaloids in Kratom. I love Kratom. Again, I have been working to make sure that this is legal and accessible. All the alkaloids, all the products that are safe, right? One of the things that's really cool is that there was a paper this year that came out and said that both Mitragynine and 7-hydroxy Mitragynine are actually potential therapeutics for HER2 positive breast cancer. Now here we have a substance people are like, oh, this is a demonized drug, like we shouldn't have it, we should ban it. But in fact, a paper suggested that this might actually 7-O is superior to Mitragynine potentially as a therapeutic for breast cancer. So, as somebody that's lost so many people to that disease specifically, that's exciting. I mean, we also think about this as women, right? Like we take all these different substances and some of them increase our cancer risk. So here we have plant alkaloids that we should be celebrating, understanding, and keep legal so we can study them, because you know what happens when you make something Schedule 1? It is so hard to research, okay? We learned that from cannabis. We don't want to go that pathway. We want to explore each of the fascinating possibilities of these different alkaloids, including 7-O, right? Like, let's provide hope for people. Again, we're not slinging, miracle cures out there. I'm not saying, hey, take 7-O and your breast cancer will go away. Of course not. That is not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is that we have so many exciting things to explore. So let us do that. Let us do the research. Let us understand if this is a tool for chronic pain, if this is a potential harm reduction tool for different types of substance abuse. Does this have other uses potentially, including women's health? And, again, for women's health, it has been such an underfunded, understudied field. And here we have something that people might be able to use for some of their very, very specific and terrible pain, right? We have endometriosis, which impacts 1 in 10 women, and women are struggling finding something that works for them, because you don't get opioids for it. They're like, oh, your period might happen, once a month. We're not going to give you opioids, right? But you have something that has a higher pain level need than Tylenol, right? So there's so many things that this could impact and we could help, but again, we just need to understand how people are using this, how people could use this, validate that safety through different frameworks, et cetera. I'm not here to discuss what legal pathways that we should go to understand these things, but all I know is that if you make it Schedule 1, we can't do the research properly. So let's not do that.
All right, Jackie. So I keep hearing positive thing after positive thing. So tell me why I'm hearing states that are trying to ban it or put a 2% cap on it. Do we have some huge crisis? Do we have people dying? Like, what is driving states to try and get rid of it then?
Good question, and it's something that we've been, sort of battling for a while now. The American Kratom Association has successfully passed Kratom Consumer Protection Acts, otherwise known as KCPA, in a dozen and a half or so states around the country, and regulating Kratom, which has been great. Sadly, they also chose to put a cap on the level of 7-hydroxy that could be included in a product, and they set that cap at approximately 2%. That's the most common number that there is. There's a few 1%. And what that would mean is that they're saying that a 2% cap is essentially a de facto ban, because if you're having a 7-hydroxy one single alkaloid tablet or product, it's 100% or 98% or whatever the number is of 7-0. So immediately it would disqualify any 7-0 products from the market because it's based on the total alkaloids in the product. But what we are seeing is that it's a loophole, and I don't even know if they intended it to be a loophole, but it is a loophole in that a 50 milligram isolated 7-0 tablet, if you had the 2% rule, would be considered illegal because it would be greater than 2% of the total alkaloids in the plant. So if you had a 25 milligram 7-0, you add 1,000 milligrams of Mitragynine, and now you're compliant in this 2% rule. So we actually have been fighting bans across the country now for the last several months. We've been fairly successful in most of the states. In my own personal state of California, we fought real hard, but we were able to put a bill into a 2-year cycle, so the bill kind of pauses and doesn't do anything, and it comes back next year. So we have time to talk about that and work with the author. In states like Florida and Texas, the same kind of thing has happened where it's been put into a cycle. One of them is delayed till next year. One of them I think is delayed till 27. There was a couple of places where we didn't do so well, and I think in Oklahoma, in fact, we were down to 1%, I believe. So we have some work to do out there. I want to say that I'd like to kind of take this opportunity to bring something else up that's relevant to all of this. Because we are here as 7 Hope Alliance, couple of things. One, we are acknowledging that there are bad actors out there in the world. At a counterculture convention, for example, you're always going to find that. It's kind of part of the whole counterculture aspect of it. We acknowledge that those businesses are out there, those brands are out there. We also acknowledge that there's a lot of value in Kratom, in traditional Kratom products. We would prefer that there's a market, and we believe that there's places in the market for both of those products. So the way that we want to look at it is let's try to set up regulations that covers all of it instead of trying to ban one or tighten up the other. It's like, no, let's just find a happy medium here that we can put it all out in the market, backed by safety studies and continued science, as opposed to rushing to ban and starting up a drug war again. That being said, we also believe that regulation is critical here, because when you have bad actors in a market, you could tell people, hey, don't go buy those products, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you not to go buy those products. What I am going to say is that if we can get good regulation, we can regulate those people out of the market. Or if they want to stay in business, they can then get compliant. So we acknowledge that there is work to do in the 7-0 world, in the brand space, and we'll do our best to continue to educate people on how to do that. What questions you can ask your distributors, your brands, your point of sale people to make things easier so that you know what's going into your body, or that your customers know what you're selling for your customers to go into their body. That's what really is important over here. So we're in support of reasonable regulations for the whole industry, and we would like to regulate out those bad actors that are doing things that we don't really support. And to that end, there is a product out there that we don't really like to say don't use things, but there is a product out there that is new. It is a completely, I'm going to let Dr. Ross talk more about the science of it, but it's a completely synthetic product, a novel product, and it's called MGM or MGM-15, MGM-16. And they do come off of 7.0. She can tell you more about it. We have a sheet that you can come grab afterwards. It's like a fact sheet about this stuff. There's, I believe, one potential brand here on the floor. This stuff is dangerous.
Actually, I'll interrupt you real quick. I believe CHAMPS shut it down.
Did they shut it down?
But I was told that they said,
take one of these so you can learn more about it, because
Schedule 1 analog.
This is really bad stuff. MGM, it's right here. Everything you need to know, done by scientists, approved by scientists.
I do want to say that we are working on research. Our partners are amazing. We have labs, we have PhD scientists. This is not like a phony operation. The Seven Hope Alliance is a real research foundation that is doing the education, doing the hard work. And so, for example, for MGM-15, which is an opioid agonist, it's not an alkaloid found in the plant, completely synthetic. This substance was actually found to have a lethal dose in mice. And that's what's really, really concerning, because then, of course, that means that there's a lethal dose in humans. And again, this was studied. This is unpublished research, but one of our research partners actually looked at this and said, okay, if you give the MGM-15 orally, right, will they die? And they do. And so that's concerning. And so, like, to us, when we talk about safety, right, there's a lot of different safety studies, in both mouse and rodents right now, published on both Mitragynine and 7.0. And some of it, you also have to look at, like, what's the route? How are they taking it? Is this clinically relevant to humans? And I have to point out that when we say things like there's no lethal dose for 7.0, we're talking about oral route, right? And right now, we're not talking about like crushing up tablets or doing something illicit, right? Like what you would see with traditional opioids. We're talking about the proper, responsible commercial use of products, right? So taking a 7.0 product or taking Kratom, like when you eat it, right? So we're talking about oral consumption here. And so there is no LD50 so far for oral consumption of 7.0. And again, it's not ethical to do that with humans, right? There's going to be different types of studies, looking at effective dose, therapeutic doses, things like that. But in terms of IV studies, right, if you look at a drug, it's different when you take it IV, right? There is a lethal dose to 7.0 IV. Right? We're not going to dance around that. People should not be injecting this, right? Like, that's not what this is for. And of course, when you look at any of those types of studies, anything that you take is usually much more dangerous if you injected yourself with it. So we're not saying that there isn't studies out there that are saying, hey, this is 100% safe. We're talking about responsible use of these substances. So let's just put that out there, right? We're not going to ignore science here, right? Respiratory depression, right? Dr. McCurdy did do a study where he looked at IV administration of 7.0, right? And he found that there was some respiratory depression, which actually, wasn't killing them. It did rebound and went back to normal after a couple hours, right? So IV has a lethal dose, right? So it's not surprising that there's respiratory depression with IV use of 7.0. Now, I want to see the data that humans that are taking this, tablets are suffering from respiratory depression. We're not seeing that, to be honest, right? There's over 1 million users of 7.0. We're not seeing them show up in ERs. I have different, consultants, et cetera, that are working in ERs, and they're not seeing 7.0 show up in the ERs. They're not seeing people go, oh my goodness, this person OD'd, there were 7.0 tablets all over their room. Like, that's not happening. And it's just really frustrating. So, you know what, sometimes rodent research translates to humans, sometimes it doesn't, and in fact, and for this specific drug, 7.0, is metabolized different in rodents, in dogs, and in humans, right? And so we really do need these human clinical trials to establish safety. Let's do that. Let's fund this. Let's ensure that what we are selling to people is actually safe. right? And I'm for that, right? But we can't have people going around and saying that this is so unsafe for everyone. It needs to be banned, yesterday. It's not, again, the big issue that they're making it out to be. The high school seniors aren't taking it. People aren't overdosing from it. Left and right. And again, we're not seeing the overdose. There are problematic users, and let me be very clear, there are problematic users of Kratom, right? We all know somebody who's addicted to Kratom. Let's not dance around it, right? Let's provide support and education about responsible dosing, what, limits on what the maximum doses of both Mitragynine or Kratom or 7-0 should be, right? Let's make that responsible use framework, right? Let's not just leave people in bands hanging on by a thread going, oh my goodness, where should I get my 7-0 from? It's not being sold in a market. Should I go order from a sketchy place online or something? Let's provide support structures, because we know, again, that there will always be problematic use. There is always going to be people that need these products and need to be educated about them. We need to educate doctors. We need to educate lawmakers. We need to educate consumers. I want somebody to understand, if they're picking up a product, are they picking up a 7-0 product, a 7-0 plus MP product? Again, we study 7-0 here at the 7 Hope Alliance, so I'm not even going to get into all these different variations of products, right? We really do support more of the just 7-0 pure products right now, just because we just don't understand how all these other alkaloids interact there. But we really do want somebody to understand, hey, I'm taking Kratom capsules, I'm taking a Kratom extract drink, and when we talk about the poison control data, when we talk about ER data, guess what? No one is reporting the difference between, I took a Kratom extract shot or I took Kratom capsules, right? That's also not noted. So there's a lot of ambiguity when it comes to looking at the data of what did somebody take and how did that influence them? Did they have an OD? Did they have to call a poison center? Are they a 12th grader? Are they taking a Kratom extract shot? Are they taking a Kratom pill? Are they taking a 7-0 pill? Right now, there's, it's all getting lumped into Kratom, to be honest. But again, the issue isn't that 7-0 and Kratom are so different. It's just there are a variety of products, and the research isn't maybe keeping up with the pace of products. And we saw that with cannabis, right? We saw in the hemp industry, right? And let's not demonize the product. Let's understand how people are using this, why they're using this, and let's make sure that it's getting classified. I want to know if somebody comes in the ER and they said that they're using 7-0 and there's a problem. But I also want to say that preliminary data shows that 7-0 users are Kratom users. There's very few people that are just entering straight into the 7-0 space, right? And so it's not an entrance drug. It's not what we're seeing hey, some 10th graders are picking up these pills and going, hey, now I'm addicted to 7-0. That's not what's happening. So again, we need to understand this compound in so many different ways. But again, I just want to stress it's not the dangerous thing that they are making it out to be.
All right, I'm going to cheat a little bit on this next question because I'm going to combine a couple and then touch on what Terry had mentioned earlier. We know for 20 years straight, opiate overdose deaths in America just kept going up and up and up. We lost over 1 million Americans to it. 7-hydroxy first hit American shelves the third quarter of 2023, and by 2024 it was mainstream. Now, I have an advantage. I have the CDC report in front of me, so it makes it a little easier. The CDC just released their overdose death reports for 2024, and if I didn't have it in front of me, I would not believe it, or I would say it was a miracle. For the first time in 20 years, opiate overdose deaths are down, and not just a little. Some states are down as much as 40%. Now, I know Science 101 says correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation, but I did read the Utah thing that you mentioned. The only state in the country whose opiate overdose death rate went up more than 2% was Utah. And from the research we're seeing, Utah was the only state that actually enforced the 2% ban on hydroxy in 2024. I want to hear from you guys hey, am I pulling this conclusion out of wild air, or is this legitimate? When I look at this and I say, wait, the states that have heavy hydroxy consumption usage, and this looking straight from the CDC, their overdose death rates are down over 30%. And the states that don't have it, their opiate overdose death is up.
Well, thank you, Matt. I've studied the CDC report and a couple of other reports, and we're seeing that in areas where 7-hydroxy consumption has increased, opiate deaths have decreased. And there's a couple of studies that correlate that directly, but it's difficult at this point for us to say that it's directly causational. But the results are really promising. And I have friends whose have family members who have died from opioid overdoses, and the opiate crisis has been just tragic for this country. And so the possibility that we might have something that is promising, that could be possibly used in treatment, is incredible. And those numbers so far are really difficult to just dismiss. I mean, there's too many numbers that are correlating there, and people are really starting experts are really starting to take note and to pay attention to that. And that's one of the things that 7 Hope is doing, is funding research, and we really want more studies to be able to determine if there is a direct cause, but so far it's promising.
Well, can I chime in on that? Yeah. So this is just a particular point that I want to bring up, which is about the FDA. They have an adverse event reporting system. It's a database that if you have an adverse event from taking a product, you reach out, call them, send a text, whatever, and you go into the system, and then they have a ton of data in there, and it does in fact show that since 2023, when 7-hydroxy came on the market, that there have been 3 adverse events reported with 7-hydroxy. It might have been updated to 5 last week, but they update it regularly. But of those 3 events, all were polydrug users, and 0 of those events were attributed by the FDA to their deaths to be based from 7-hydroxy. On the other hand, Mitragynine products, which have been on the market for much longer, so they have a whole different scenario over there. There are quite a lot of deaths that have been attributed to Mitragynine over the years, but I think what's most important is to look at the same time window, which is 23, 24, and through this year of when 7.0 came out. And as we keep hearing from the Kratom industry that people are dying, they're in emergency rooms. Well, in fact, Mitragynine deaths dropped by like 55% in the last 2 years. So when 7.0 came out, instead of Mitragynine, those deaths, which might not have been qualified as 7.0 because they didn't know, those numbers didn't go up, they went down. So that, I think, is an important piece of information too to look at, is that we're doing our best to crunch the data, but the data is small, right? We need more time to be on the market to have more data. But those are the kinds of things that are available to us today. And so by looking at a CDC chart that's showing a drastic drop in opioid death decline, okay, that's fantastic. And perhaps 7.0 has something to do with it. Perhaps over-the-counter naloxone had something to do with it. Perhaps doctors not writing prescriptions for RX, anymore had something to do with it. Perhaps bad quality products had something to do with it. So, but we can't rule out that 7.0 actually might have had something to do with it. The timeline is exactly the same as when 7.0 came on the market. So between the CDC death decline of opioids and the Mitragynine deaths at the adverse event website for the FDA dropping, not rising, dropping by over 50% in the last 2 years. Anecdotally, right, we are sort of inferring that 7.0 might have played a role in that. We want to be able to do continued testing because one day we'd love to be able to come here and say it did. We can't say that today, and we're not going to. But we can say that it might have, because it is, we are hearing, again, from people that are using the products, and they are telling us that they have switched from fentanyl to 7.0. They've switched from alcohol to 7.0. They've switched from heroin to 7.0. So if people aren't indeed switching, as they're telling us, that would also account for a drop in deaths. So, this is the kind of data we have today in 2025. We're hoping that, soon we have more data to work with.
Yeah, and I want to just jump in here too and relate it back to something that we're very familiar with, and there's actually a lot more published research on cannabis, right? So cannabis was being used as a substitute for opioids, whether they were prescription or, again, the illicit market like heroin, fentanyl, et cetera. And what they found over the years that when they legalized cannabis, whether it was medical or recreational market, they saw the drop in opioid deaths. Now, right now, Kratom and 7.0 exist in a very, gray market. They're not really authorized, right? But they're not illegal in most places yet, right? And so that's why we can correlate, like, where these markets have opened up for 7.0, is there a drop in opioid deaths? That's exciting. And I think that, again, we have to have this substance legal for us to understand, is this actually having an impact? Because again, if it's blanket banned by the feds or is banned in most states, we'll never get to know the answer. Did this actually help reduce opioid deaths? We just, again, need more time to collect the data.
So speaking of the data, the report I have here from earlier says we know over 500 million doses. I had to read the number twice, so like 500 million doses of hydroxy have been consumed in the United States. Walking through the CHAMPS Expo right now, I can also believe that. Every other booth has it. Are you comfortable if I walk out and I say, hey, I leave this and I go, 7-hydroxy is safe? Like, am I making the correct conclusion? Am I jumping way past it? Is 500 million doses, is that enough that I can say, okay, anecdotally, this product is safe? Or am I jumping to conclusions? I'll take it from any one of you guys.
Yeah, so that, again, there is always more to safety than death data, right? We want a product that isn't addictive. We want a product that's not causing adverse events like, pancreas harm or liver harm or things like that. There's some preclinical research that is, being prepared for publication right now that looks at, how 7.0 impacts different cells, from cardiac cells to liver cells, et cetera. And it seems to have a safer profile than Mitragynine. And again, this is preclinical work. So we really have to do this in humans. And we really have to understand, okay, is this as safe as things that are already on this market? Is it safer? Is it worse? Are there people that are high risk and should be informed that they should not take this? Are there potential drug interactions, right? These are the same questions we have about a lot of the Kratom products in the market and about a lot of other natural products too. And we need this answered about 7.0. I cannot, put a big rubber stamp on this is safe, everyone should take this. No, of course not. We don't have that clinical safety data. Is this perhaps safer than the heroin that you might be using, or is this safer than something else that you already know is, not working for you, right? Again, these are personal choices, and I think it comes down to everyone has a different neurochemistry, everyone has a different medical history, everyone has to make that choice whether, for you personally, do the benefits outweigh the risks. And really that comes down to conscious Kratom use, conscious 7.0 use, right? Conscious any type of substance or supplement use. Again, is it safe for a product that might be working for you or you might be comfortable with, right? Might not be safe perhaps for somebody else, right? And so I don't think that we can say 7.0 is safe for everyone right now, no.
I'm glad you mentioned the addict part though, because I had an interesting question on it. My wife is one of the most amazing women in the entire world. If she does not get 2 cups of coffee by 10 a.m., I might be divorced by noon. Do I go out and say my wife is a caffeine addict? Does being something addicted, does that just write off? Should I be running out of here and say we're banning Starbucks tomorrow? This is caffeine, well, hey, that's somewhat addictive too. Can I use that argument? Say, oh, it's addictive, it's bad. Walk me through the differences.
Well, I think from where I sit, I understand that there are many kinds of different levels of addictive products out there. There is are the ones that he's mentioning. There's caffeine and sugar, which most of the world, if not America, is addicted to in some capacity. And those have a certain level of addiction. There are, cannabis, and there's, psychedelics, and there's antibiotics, and all those have different levels of addiction. And then there's the opioids, right? Fentanyl, morphine, oxycodone, heroin. Those are very highly addictive. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe that nicotine is at the top of the list as the most addictive substance out there. So I think that's, for me, I try to look at things on a level of addiction or addictive principles. I also don't think that we, just for reference, I'd like to keep us away from the word addict because I think it's too pigeonholing somebody. People can be more than their addictions. That's just my own little added thing here, but I think that 7-hydroxy, Kratom, they are, from what we've looked at, they're not coffee. They're in the coffee family. The Kratom and plant and coffee plant are in the same family, but they're not the same. But they are closer to coffee and caffeine rather, as far as their addictive principles. Mitragynine being a little closer and 7-O being a little bit further away from it than they are to fentanyl, heroin, and all of the big opioids. So if you were to look at it on a graph, the Mitragynine and 7-O are more addictive than caffeine, but they're still not, as far as all the addictive things that we do in our lives, they're still kind of in the lower third, we'll say.
You know, I have to say that there's a lot that we don't know, right? I'm not going to sugarcoat this. There are people that are dependent and have problematic use on both Kratom and 7-O, right? We need to understand where they're coming from, right? Were they previous heroin users that went to Kratom at high doses and then went to 7-O at high doses, right? Like we need to understand the percentage of users that have problematic use, right? We need to understand all this, and we need to support them and find avenues for them to get help, right? Like what is the most appropriate treatment for somebody who has, Kratom dependence? What is the most appropriate treatment for somebody who has 7-O dependence? Again, these are opioids. And again, it's not even the fact that they're opioids. There are so many substances anyone can have problematic use, right? And so let's not stigmatize the user, let's support them. And again, I don't want to create a nation full of people with problematic use, but that's not what we're seeing with 7-O. Again, 500 million doses or servings, sold this year, 1 million users. That's a lot of people, and we want to see, is this 1%? Is it 0.05%? Like who is struggling? And again, how can we help them, right? How can we support them? Because the 7-O or the Kratom wasn't the issue. The issue was they were struggling with pain or they were struggling with trauma, right? Let's not demonize people that need support. Let's help them. We all know somebody who has died from the opioid epidemic. Every single one of us in this room knows at least one person, right? Why are we making them out to be the problem, right? Let's get them help, right? And then let's, again, support also the people who are using this responsibly as an alternative for opioids. Because guess what?
I want to jump in. Responsible use, because I have the question for myself. I use Hydroxy between basically 1 to 2 times a week. I mentioned earlier I have 4 herniated discs from a car accident. There'll be nights I'm laying in bed like this. I can't sleep. I take around 15 milligrams. I sleep amazing. I wake up. I don't have a hangover. I feel fantastic. But in all my time in this industry, I've never actually sat down with a doctor, had them tell me, hey, how many should I be taking? Like, what is the responsible amount? How often should I take it? I realize I'm 6'4", I'm going to be bigger. Someone else might be taking less. I understand that concept. Can you give me just any rough idea how many times I should take it, how much I should take it, anything like that?
There's been a couple of different ways that people are doing this, and some of it involves packaging. Of all things, there are tablets, let's say birth control, that has placebos in it. You take it for a certain amount of days and then you got a few sugar pills, right? There's talks about putting 7-O into packaging like that, where you're not taking it every day. Maybe it's every 1 day or 2 days or twice a week or 3, but maybe you shouldn't be going past 3 days. And it is an individual thing. It is based on your physiology, I suppose. Again, not a scientist here, but we believe in responsible use, and we want to advocate for responsible use, because the thing is, when you have a product that is adult product, 21 and over, part of that responsibility is on you, meaning you're the adult, you want to have freedoms to have certain things out there available to you. It's all then up to you to make decisions for yourself as to what's responsible for yourself. As a product manufacturer might say something different. They might say, well, we think you should take, start with 1/4 milligram, or, start with half a tablet, or they might give you some guidelines. And that's another thing you can do when you go talk to 7-O companies, is ask them, what is their serving size? What is their dose? What is their recommended dose? Because each product is manufactured a little differently. Each product is formulated a little differently. So I think a lot of it is actually on the brands and on the manufacturers and the packaging companies to help you guide you into some basic understanding of what's good. But at the end of the day, it's going to be up to you to find your own dosing. We went through it in cannabis and CBD. we have somebody else that we work with that actually takes both Kratom and 7-0 for Crohn's disease and for all kinds of things that she's been suffering with her life. And she has tried a blend of this and tried a blend of that, more milligrams here, less milligrams here. And she finally found like the perfect dose of both, in her case, that works for her. And now her life has been turned around. She was out of the workforce for like 4 years. She's back now. She wasn't able to walk across like a field, like a schoolyard. She can do all those things now once she found that perfect balance for herself. So I think a lot of it is also just you as the individual figuring out what works for you, but having the brands and having those manufacturers and packaging give you some guidelines on that particular product.
And I want to mention, as somebody who has invisible disability, right? Some days I actually can't get out of bed. I have a cane and I have to have somebody actually help me out of bed and help put me into bed. So right now I'm on 7-0, right? I can walk around and like life is good, but people have different levels of pain, different levels of ability, right? And it's really important to have different types of products out there. And so, again, this journey into understanding the safety and effectiveness of some of these different products out there, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge because there are different formulations or different doses. But like, for example, I'm really excited to see that there are products that are like sustained release 7-0 tablets and regular dosing. And then there's like rapid release, because guess what? If you're somebody who's struggling, daily, it's like sometimes you need, something that'll work a little bit faster, or sometimes you need something that'll last you all day, right? Everyone has different needs. And I think it's really up to our nonprofit to educate people on like, what are these different things? What does this mean? Is a rapid release dose the same as a sustained release or something like that? Like, there's a lot of products out there, and let's be clear. This kind of, again, variety of products has existed in the cannabis market, right? We have rapid release gummies, we have regular gummies, we have drinks, we have all these different things, and people have had to navigate this and try to figure this out. But this isn't like something new that the 7-0 industry has created, different types of products for different consumer needs, right? It's like the need is out there. That's why these products exist. And again, we're hearing great things about this, but yes, I would say that the dosing is going to be different for everyone. And that's why it's so important that we train professionals. So I did actually some of the most earliest educational courses for doctors, training for coaches. I helped set up the different telehealth companies for cannabis, how to do cannabis coaching, how to do cannabis consultations. And so I worked with that in that framework. And I'm working to do that with both Kratom and 7-0, because guess what? People don't know how to use Kratom properly. They don't know how to use it safely. And that also extends to 7-0, and especially because the new products out there, there's even more questions, right? So if you're somebody that is dealing with depression, you're somebody that's dealing with chronic pain, again, these are harm reduction consultations. They are not treating anyone's condition, but again, helping people that are struggling with multiple things, improving their quality of life through natural medicine like Kratom and 7-0 is important, and is going to be really important for people to have conversations with qualified people, whether they're nurses, whether they are doctors. And you can't have a conversation with doctors if they don't know what the heck it is. So we are doing the right things. We are the good guys here. We are doing the education. We're putting the programs in place. We want to make all of these products safer, and we want to help your doctors and your nurses and other people understand this. Will this be embraced by everyone? No, of course. Even cannabis wasn't embraced by people. It took like a decade for people to start coming around on like CBD and things like that, right? But we're making progress. We're having the conversations. Again, we were at a conference where we were talking to addiction therapists and helping them understand like what these different products are, and rehab clinics and things like that. We want to take out these products out of the shadows, right, and help people understand what they are and how to use them and who to go to talk about it. Because again, your traditional doctor may not know anything about it and just be like, here's another opioid prescription for you, right? And that's not what people want. But they do want to talk to somebody who understands what they're talking about, right? It's not just going to give them, try to get them, the most expensive product on the market. We need healthcare professionals that are informed in Kratom and 7-0 care.
All right, so a little tougher of a question. So I heard 500 million doses used. Terry, I heard the amazing story. You're pulling money out of the black market. You're putting it into small businesses. I hear possibly helping people get off opiates. Someone tell me why I just heard about 18 FDA letters being sent out. Walk me through that one.
So yes, you may have read or seen that 7 companies in the 7-hydroxy space received warning letters from the FDA a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and basically calling them out on various products that they have. So we have done a lot of research on this, and I will say that this was a play by the American Kratom Association it's what I like to call a manufactured crisis. There's nothing real to see here. The AKA presumably sent out enough letters, complaint letters to the FDA to trigger a routine process, a procedural process that then requires warning letters to go out. The FDA had no intention of sending these letters out at this time. We make no secret of the fact that the FDA does not like us. So that is absolutely out there. They don't really like Kratom either, for that matter. They really don't like the whole bunch. However, this was a well-timed, perhaps, manufactured crisis. And so as a result, the companies have had to, respond to those letters. There's been a lot of press about those letters. But at the end of the day, we are putting ourselves in positions where we are taking this seriously. So if the FDA comes to us for real and wants to know what's going on, we can tell them what we're doing. We can say, we've got, we've got this study and this study and this study and this study that we're doing right now. Our intention is to do enough studies that we can then build what is the safety profile of 7.0. When people say, is it safe? We want to be able to say yes. And we want to be able to say, and here's the data. And that's what we're doing right now. Again, product's only been out on the market for 2 years. So the fact that, that the Kratom industry is trying to ban 7.0, is trying to sick the FDA on us, and tell everybody that it's a full opioid agonist when that is absolutely a false statement. We're taking it in stride. We're not freaking out because we know that this was created by them. There is no crisis. We have not seen, if everybody in this room would have seen news reports of people dying from 7.0, people getting into, that's the kind of thing that the news reports on. There's no reports. Where are all the deaths that they keep saying that are happening? Where are all the kids that are supposedly saying, oh, I've got chronic pain, I better go get 7.0? Like, where are all this? There's no data on it. It's just a bunch of bluster. So, we have reasons we believe that the Kratom industry is doing this. Don't need to really share that with you today. What I can tell you is if you go out onto the floor right now, you'll see that even since February, the previous CHAMPS, that the ratio of 7.0 companies to Kratom product companies up there has shifted. And there are less Kratom products out there these days than there are 7.0 products. So the market a lot of times can answer some questions for us, right? What do people want? What is working for them? What do they like? We're going to continue on. As we continue on, we are continuing to work on great regulatory packages. We're continuing to do studies. We're going to continue to do education, and we're not going to worry so much about FDA warning letters that didn't really happen. They happened, but they didn't happen for real. It wasn't the FDA coming down on us.
So do I get to walk out there and just tell everybody, hey, look, we can confirm 500 million doses. We can confirm no deaths. They won't promise me that, oh, this is perfect, this is healthy, everyone should take it. But I can say, you are perfectly fine spending the next 5 years doing studies, developing, getting better and better while still having this product on the market. I don't need to run out and say, you got to pull it off right now. People are dropping dead. People are being addicted. People are robbing. Like, you can conclude and say, okay, it is safe to be on the market. Yes, I can't give you every little bit of knowledge, but it is safe right now, and we will continue to do those studies. Can I make that argument, or do I look like an idiot?
I would have to say that this isn't spice that needs to be pulled, and made a Schedule I drug, for sure. I see that this is safe and should be allowed to be on the market.
My son overdosed on spice, and my best friend, his son, also overdosed on spice and ended up committing suicide. So there's no way that I would support this product if I thought that it was causing these kinds of issues out in the community. We're just absolutely not seeing it. Law enforcement, you know, with cannabis, we were being asked, oh, educate law enforcement about cannabis. There was a need for that. That's not happening with 7-hydroxy because they're not seeing any issues with it. So more study, more time. There's no reason to be pulling it off of the market right now. We just absolutely, there's no way that I would support it if I thought that we were seeing major problems with safety issues in the community. And so we need more studies. We need to understand, and we need to continue to make it available for people who need it.
Okay, so I don't really need to worry about people saying, oh, you got to pull it right off, or is the counter to that, if we do pull it off, are they running to the black market? Prohibition created the mafia. If we do go the other way, and if we say, nope, we're pulling this off the market, we're not having it, are we running risks that we are driving people back to fentanyl or to Percocets
I
or
think so.
to Oxys?
I think so, and I think that if we pulled 7-0 off the market today, I feel like we would see the deaths go up again. I really do. Obviously nobody has a crystal ball, but that is what I believe. I believe we'd see deaths go up.
I agree.
Yeah, we need age gating. We need smart regulations, right? We don't want to see this in the hand of minors.
You're stealing my next question. I was just about to ask you, where do I draw the line? Do I say, hey, 21 plus in childproof packaging? Do I say absolutely no advertising online? Like, where do I draw the line?
Well, I think a full regulation package ultimately is what's needed. And as I mentioned earlier, the Kratom Consumer Protection Act is already in play in 15, 16, whatever the number is today, states. The problem is it still has that de facto 2% ban for most of them in there. There's a couple that don't. But if we were to come up with a regulatory package that, like I said earlier, that protects all of it, from age gating and child safety protections to proper labeling, proper dosing, proper serving sizes, and testing. This is where we really, really need to spend some time, because we need to have clean product out there in the market. And that is critical to this whole thing, is that we have clean product out there. And as I was saying earlier, regulation is what will kick out those bad actors who are making crap product right now, right? They're either going to up their game and get into the market and stay clean, or they're going to leave, and that is how it works. We do not want 7-0 to start driving people back to the illicit market to find all kinds of things out there that are potentially very dangerous for them. So, you know, yeah.
No, that honestly does answer the concerns I've heard. Where do you actually see the industry going? Well, let's say the next 5 years, even to the next 10 years. I keep hearing on the show, we're going to end the opioid crisis in America. The opioid crisis is going to be gone. You don't get to make that claim. What I want to hear instead is, where do you see the industry over the next 5 years, over the next 10 years?
Well, I actually see, as long as we can maintain and keep the bans at bay, and hopefully get on the same page with the Kratom industry and work together, because we'll be much stronger together. I feel like I've heard that before. That we should be able to take this product and have these products safely out in the market. People understand what their dosing are. They can combine, they cannot combine. We'll have proper education out there so that people know what other drugs to not take with Kratom, with 7-0. Like, we haven't even touched on that, but you know, there's drugs, we won't go into deep, but there's drugs like Benadryl that should not be taken at the same time with Mitragynine or 7-0. That's not a good combination. We need to make sure that that's on labeling and things like that. So that's what I see happening. I see us maturing as an industry. Also, I think that what I'd like to see is that when we mature, is that 7-0 products make their way out of smoke shops and make their way into more proper facilities, whatever kinds of stores those might be. I don't even really have thoughts on that yet. But similar to how cannabis made its way to dispensaries and a little bit more controlled and protected and licensed, you know, perhaps there's a way that Kratom and 7-0 can together go find themselves a better home, a better outlet, a better place than we don't need to take it away from smoke shops per se, but that's really, I think, one of the challenges. And as we mature, I'd like to see that happen.
You mentioned that ban, and then Terry, this might be more towards you. So I've heard this a couple times that the American Kratom Association, or not even anyone else, if they're running around to the different states and saying it's poison, it's dangerous, it's poison, it's dangerous, well, not only is it not true, but then some of the state legislators are responding with, oh, you're right, get rid of all the Kratom and just wipe out Kratom completely. And now you have users in a state that may have depended on 7-OH or may have depended on Kratom, and now their options are back to black market opioids, fentanyl. So should we be focusing more on working with the Kratom associations and say, hey, why don't we come to an agreement, 21 plus, child-proof packaging, no advertising? Do we want to be saying, hey, look, you're running the risk of losing the entire industry and damaging people? Where's the middle ground where the American Kratom Association and other traditional Kratom associations go, okay, well, this is reasonable, and the 7-OH guys go, okay, yep, this is also reasonable, versus, okay, we're just going to keep fighting each other, and every now and then we lose an entire state. Where's the middle ground?
It's very, very important that we keep 7-hydroxy and Mitragynine from being scheduled. We need to stop these 2% bans in these states, because what those do is they keep us from being able to effectively study the effects. The same thing that happened with cannabis when cannabis was scheduled, which we all know that was a huge lie. There clearly was medicinal benefits from cannabis, and so I believe that it's important that the industry, both industries, work together to make sure that we're not banning these products in a way that would keep us from studying them. You referred to 500 million doses that have been consumed. We know that it may be anecdotal, but like Jackie said, we know that there are many people out there that are telling us that that 7-hydroxy is working for them. They're using it to get off of other more dangerous things. So I believe it's important for the industry to continue working to keep these products from getting banned, to continue to study them, so that we can understand better exactly what the effects are, what the positives are and the negatives. And like Doc said, there are definitely negatives. We need to understand those, but it's important that we all work together in order to, and I completely support safety regulations. I think it's very important. We don't want kids out there using this product, and we don't want them packaged like bubble gum or whatever, like some Mitragynine products have been. So it's important that we regulate them, but we don't want to ban them, because that's just the wrong way to go.
All right, we only have a couple of minutes left. Give me either the most important thing, a closing argument. Dr. Ross, we'll start with you. Just something you want everyone to know.
Okay, I think that the most important thing for this industry is to educate the consumers on what these products are. Again, like THC and CBD, if 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, somebody would pick up a tincture and say oh, I'm taking CBD oil, and it would be THC. They didn't know, literally, right? And that's where we are. We're in the infancy of this industry, right? People don't know if they're taking a kratom. They don't know if they're taking a kratom extract. They don't know if they're taking kratom extract plus there's so many combinations here. It's confusing. Education is key. Also, the self-regulation, the safety standards. We really want to roll out a program called 7 Safe, which will put a seal on products and be this is only 7-0. If you're looking just for a 7-0 product, not anything else mixed in with it or whatever like that, just a single alkaloid product, don't read the labs. Don't try to figure this out and have to ask a couple questions from the guy at the smoke shop who doesn't really know, right? Just look for something that you can understand that this has been tested for solvents, as this has been tested for adulterants, as this has been tested for mold, tested for everything that we expect regular kratom products to reach those safety guidelines, right? This is, again, we can't say it's 100% safe, but this is the top products in the market that meet our standards. And I think really right now it's a confusing market. We just need people to understand where they can get single alkaloid products that are safe.
I mean, I echo what she says because it is about safety right now. We are in an educational moment where we've got to educate everybody about safety until we have more studies and more definitive data to be able to just have it published and everybody out there can read about how safe it is. We right now are somewhat limited because we can tell you what we know, we can tell you what customers are saying and consumers are saying, we can tell you what some of the studies that are out there have been saying, but I think that it is about safety, which is also why I referenced the MGM products earlier. And again, I remind you, there's some flyers here. If you want to come check it out, there's all the facts on MGM right here. That is pretty much the most dangerous product that we're seeing out there today. And you know, we just want to be able to make sure from a consumer safety perspective that we are always staying true to that as our primary focus.
I just want to ask everyone to do your own research. Don't believe the propaganda that one industry might be promoting in order, you know, because they feel threatened by another industry, by the 7-hydroxy industry. I saw that, and I believe that it's really more of a instead of an actual concern for public safety. These 2% bans, really, they're not in the best interest of the community. So do your research, promote the organizations that foster studies, and you know, I think that you'll see what I did. I found that it's a relatively safe product. I ended up using it myself, and I've turned other people onto it, and so just don't believe the negative hype that I think is based strictly on, you know, like I said, one industry kind of feeling threatened by the 7-hydroxy industry. It's propaganda, it's negative propaganda, and if you really dive into it, you'll see that that's exactly what it is.
And I just want to wrap too here with, if you are interested in continuing to learn with 7 Hope Alliance, you can go to the website, which is the number 7, hopealliance.org. You can sign up for the newsletter. There are some QR codes around. I'm not sure, Kyle back here, if you want to shake your hand, there's some flyers out, there's some QR codes. You can scan that, and that'll take you to a nice page that you got all kinds of data that you can pick up from there and ways to sign up on the newsletter. But we are a new nonprofit. We only got started earlier this year, so we're still very much in the development phase. So if you want to be a part of that, please join us and have pizza.
I was just about to announce the food that was left. All right, and I do see those flyers down there. We're not going to dive too deep into MGM. I did actually speak to another PhD that warned me that that's a Schedule 1 analog. Like, it's illegal and it might kill someone. So I hand those out if anyone's interested. And don't forget, the 3 of you promised me anyone who has questions, you guys can come up, talk to them, pick their brains, ask them anything you want to know. Other than that, thank you everybody much. Thank you very much for your time. Please eat some of the food and have a great afternoon.